Don't you kids watch horror movies? You never ever split up.
Those movies are dumb. And I'm going this way without you.
Hey there, fellow gamers, and welcome to the channel. Lil Hope is an interesting one to review. It's the second entry in a four-part anthology of story-driven games. In fact, you could argue that these types of products are more interactive movies than they are games, and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. Being a story-driven experience, it's essential to avoid spoiling the plot as much as possible and still somehow inform people what they can expect. The interactive horror story of Lil Hope has three layers, focusing mostly on a group of people stuck near the town of Lil Hope after a bus crash. They soon start experiencing strange things supposedly related to the various witch trials that once took place there. As an added element, one of the protagonists had a dream about a family that died in a fire in their family home in the 1970s. It's up to you as the player to try to get these unfortunate protagonists through the night and figure out how the witch trials and that fire connect to their situation. The gameplay elements are pretty simple and will be familiar to anyone who played either Man of Medan, the previous game in the series, or any other similar type of product, such as anything made by Telltale Games. You will spend most of your time in interactive cutscenes. There you will make certain dialogue choices that affect relationships between characters and have certain effect on who the characters are, or deal with QuickTime events. These tend to pop up during tension-filled horror sequences such as chase scenes and the like. The QuickTime events aren't particularly difficult, and you can even disable the timer they have in the options menu if you really want to make sure your experience isn't affected by unintentional reflexes. In between interactive cutscenes, you will do some walking around and light exploring. While exploring, you can find items scattered across the game that help piece together what might be going on in Little Hope. These are optional, and missing most of them doesn't really affect character interactions or your options in other parts of the game, but finding and examining them does enhance the overall atmosphere. The game looks really good visually, but it is a really dark game, literally. There is a sense of claustrophobia emphasized by putting you in extremely dark but fairly open areas surrounded by a mysterious fog and forcing you to rely on your flashlight to light the way. It's an interesting take compared to the more literal approach in Man of Medan and its tight ship corridors, but just as effective. The characters look great too, fully conveying their facial expressions through the use of performance capture tech. The audio effects and music are good and fit the tone and atmosphere of the game. There's a chorus that is used often, especially when supernatural elements come into play. The acting, however, is a mixed bag. Each actor portrays a couple of characters, and the performance varies depending on the character. I would say that the characters from the Witch Trials era left the strongest impression when it comes to how they are portrayed, while the present-day protagonists can sound believable in one scene and bland in the next. The biggest narrative problem with Man of Medan was that it spoiled the big bad in the prologue section, which diminished the horror aspect of that game. Little Hope does not repeat the same mistake. It does offer a not so subtle hint or two early on, but it generally keeps the player wondering until the very end. The problem is that while the horror experience has been significantly improved, the story does get a bit convoluted by the time the credits roll. It's not convoluted in the sense that you don't understand what happened, just that you won't necessarily be clear on why certain layers were necessary beyond the writers wanted to include it reasoning. Technically, the game is solid. I only ran into a couple minor bugs, one UI related and one visual. The UI related bug is specific to playing with a mouse and keyboard, displaying a key that you should supposedly press in a specific type of interaction, while in reality you need to move the mouse in the displayed direction. The visual bug is lighting related and only occurs in the cemetery section, making certain bushes glow. While it looks kinda nice, I doubt that was the intended look. In any case, there was nothing that really hindered the experience. As mentioned, I played this game with a mouse and keyboard, but there's also support for mouse only or a controller. All options are equally viable, so you can pick the one that suits you best. The game takes between 5 and 6 hours to beat once, but it has solid replay value, getting me interested enough to finish it 3 times to see the different outcomes and variations in the story. All in all, Little Hope is a solid interactive experience offering improved horror elements at the cost of a somewhat convoluted epilogue. It'll scratch your itch if you're looking for something a bit lighter on the gameplay side, or you simply enjoy interactive experiences like these. In my case, despite waiting a year to play it, I enjoyed myself overall and will be checking out House of Ashes very soon. If you found this helpful, leave a like. If you didn't, well, leave the other thing. If you have some time, leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you around.